Hello, everybody. It's nice to see a pretty full house here. I hope we have a few more people who are coming in as we get started here. But I am very excited to be able to open this convocation today. This convocation is a special recognition of women in the civil rights movement. And we have a panel that I am very excited about. My colleague Linda Randall will be introducing our panel. But we are very fortunate to be able to hear the lessons of civil rights activism and struggle from this 1960s onward from the people who were so integral to the change of the time period. So I think this is an incredible opportunity for us. I think it's an opportunity that should inspire us. These are all people who made real political change as young people, and so for all of you young people out there, I hope you will take some important lessons and models. And I also hope that while we have a relatively short program, that this will be the start of larger conversations. Either you'll have the chance to ask questions today, but there will also be another event coming up in April, soon to be formalized, and so maybe you will be able to hear more and sort of think more about some of these issues of fighting for equality, fighting for opportunity in America, again, from a local community perspective. So I'm very glad you're all here. I welcome you all here. And now I want to welcome Ms. Linda Randall, who most of you know already, who will introduce us further to the specific program for today. So thank you to our participants in advance, and thank you to all of you guys for being here, and thank you to Linda.
Good morning. Dr. Bragg put a lot of effort into this initially to make this program become a reality, and then the flu that has been felling many of you knocked her for a loop, and she asked me to step in because as of a couple of days ago, she had no voice at all. So I am glad that she has found her physical voice and long ago found her metaphoric voice. And so she thinks it's very important, as do many of us, to bring programs to you to help you look at another point in time. A lot of times we talk about history and people. Now, she's a historian, so of course she loves history. I love history, even though that's not my field. But a lot of times people don't want to know about history because, like, it happened a long time ago, it's over. Like, who cares? A people who does not know its history are destined to repeat, usually its mistakes. There's a concerted effort afoot in the United States for us to whitewash history, and I use that term deliberately because there's a movement that says we should only have in the history books the good things that America has done. And we are an interesting country. And like any other country, we're a baby country, because if you think, and my pathway students heard this speech yesterday, but if you think about how short, how young we are as a nation, we've made a lot of progress, and we still have a lot more progress to make. But if you compare us to ancient civilizations of Africa or China and other places, the Fertile Crescent, the very Iran and Iraq where people are fighting now, okay, we're just a baby. They call us the Great Experiment, the United States. And the reason they call us that is at no point in time has one nation tried to put so many different types of people together under one umbrella and make it work. So do we have problems? Yes. Do we have issues? No doubt. But are we going to be able to grow over time into the promise of the documents of our founding fathers? Not the behavior of our founding fathers, because they too were slaveholders as they wrote those lofty words. But the document remains true. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all, it says men, but we now say people, are created equal and endowed with their creator with certain inalienable rights. So our panel today is going to talk about the time that they stepped into claiming their inalienable rights. And we need you as young people. We just talked about in the back as we had our pre-meeting to get ready. We talked about the fact that we just celebrated Bloody Sunday, which was in Selma on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We just celebrated 50 years since those folks rose up to claim their right to vote. All right, that was 50 years ago. You will be the determinants of the next 50 years of our history, because as you can see, we are all aging and we are going to labor. I read a quote recently that said, I would rather wear out than rust out. All right, and that's a call to action. You need to do what you came to do. You need to do what you've been put on this earth to do and make things better. That's what it's about. It's about sowing for successive generations. So we're going to hear from the past so that it can hopefully inform your future and the choices that you make going forward. So thank you. If you are on your cell phone right now, first make sure that they are silenced, and because these folks came to share their stories, a story you'll never hear anywhere other than here, then please give them the respect of putting your phone up, because ain't nothing happening that is more important than what's happening in the next few minutes in your life. Because whatever mess is in your phone, it'll be there when this is over. Can I get an amen? Amen. Thank you.
Supposed to be the last one.
Okay. All right. So because I stepped in, oh, forgot the mic, knew something. After all that for fun. All right, so because I stepped in at the last minute, I have just met all of our guests 5 minutes ago. But we had a quick connection, and so what we're going to do differently than many times is they're going to introduce themselves and just tell you why they're here, because everyone here is some kind of pioneer. Some women were involved in the movement. Some women were involved in the integration of local businesses. Some women were involved in city government as a forerunner, as a pioneer. So this is a pioneer panel, not like Little House on the Prairie, but people who did something new, and they were everyday people. And I think that's the most important thing. We know about all the leaders. We know about Martin Luther King. We know about Rosa Parks. They got elevated to a certain point. But the movements of all generations, any kind of movement, always starts with everyday folks doing extraordinary things. So ordinary folks doing extraordinary things, and there's no reason it can't be you sitting in a panel someday. So at my far left, lovely in blue, all right, please start.
My name is Goldie Burts. I'm a retired presser. I was in the march in 1963. We was locked up down there with the girls of, but most of them were younger than we were, so that made us get separated. Down in Leesburg, we were sent on to Dawson. I think we served about 3 months down in Dawson prison.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 19, I was one of the oldest ones. Most of them 14 and 15, they sent the minors home. So since we were about 19, we wasn't considered minors.
Good morning. I'm Laura Virginia Davis Finch, and I am a very potent part of the American Something Kind of Movement Remembered. I wrote down some stuff because I thought that we were going to go a little bit depth and having a panel to ask questions only. But I just want you to know that when I started out in civil rights, I was 16 and a half. And there were a lot of the activists that came to Americas, and especially those who represented SNCC, which is SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. My family was deeply involved in civil rights because even my mother, who is deceased now, Wendy Reagans, was an inspiration to try to get those people who were going to be fired or who were going to be ousted as maids, doing all domestic work, whether you work for a doctor, lawyer, or just a common family. They decided that because your children are involved in civil rights, then you will be fired, which they were only making $10 or $15 anyway. And it was a good income then, believe it or not. But in 64, 65, my heart was filled when we had students from all colleges come in to actually pull together with us to let us know that we did not have to go to the back door to get a sandwich, or we did not have to go down an alley to go to a Martin Theater, or we did not have to order a sandwich from, there was McClellan's or from Crest or even at Walgreens. We didn't have to order food from there and then had it handed to us outside the door. So let me just tell you a little about what I did. And it's not going to be long. But yes, I'm glad that I was there, and I'm glad that I knew what it meant to be in the civil rights movement. I was one of those who was incarcerated in Terrell County. It's a small city, Dawson, a small city in Terrell County, Georgia. And it was in an abandoned prison from August 9th through September 19th. And all because I was in a line at the Sumter County Courthouse waiting and wanting to be a registered voter. That morning, we couldn't do that. But that afternoon, we went back and we kneeled and we prayed, and we were ordered to disperse because we were not supposed to be there. We were not supposed to become registered voters because that was not one of our equal rights. But I just left Selma, Alabama on Sunday afternoon where I walked across Edmund Pettus Bridge. I get emotional, y'all, when I talk about it because it's in my heart. But I left Sunday where I walked across Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, where people were slaughtered, where people were beaten, where dogs were put on the road, they were water holes. And the emotion that I gained when I walked through there was just like when I kneeled at Sumter County Courthouse in Americus, Georgia in 1965. So not only was I celebrating a 50-year anniversary with Selma, that 50 year as of 2013 was in my heart from Americus, Georgia. And when I was incarcerated, guys, I'm telling you, it's something. In that incarceration, I was jailed in an abandoned prison at a public work camp where we don't know why the prisoners had been taken away from that camp, but it was an abandoned prison. And we had to endure cruel and crucial punishment with unjust and unfair ways of how we were treated. Let me just tell you about some of the things that happened there. We slept on steel bunks without any mattresses, any pillows, or any linen. We had to take hot showers during the month of August when it was unbearably hot. And then sometimes they would cut the hot water off, and the water felt as if it was frozen with ice. That summer, we had cold showers, warm showers, no washcloths, no soap, no towels, no toothpaste, no toothbrushes, or any items for our personal use. And girls need personal items. We were there from August 9th to September 19th, so you know how that must have been. Locked up where we received only 4 cold hamburgers a day that was delivered in the morning and had to last us all day. And then sometime when they thought that we had acted out, they delivered to us 2 cold scrambled powdered egg sandwiches to last all day. Now that was a man, and I'm sure some of you guys know them, some of you white people probably know him, Mr. Story. Mr. Story was an amazing man, but he was a city dog catcher. And he drove a raggedy beat-up pickup truck where he picked up dead animals as well as captured those who were running loose. Well, Mr. Story had a story to tell when he met us because he was also our guard down there. He delivered for us from the back of that city dump truck those meals. And we had to save those wrappers because we had no paper to write on. They did give us a pen, a pencil, not a pen. And from the sandwiches that we used, we had to write notes on those, and we had to use those same wrappers for toilet tissue. Can you imagine? My soul still looks back and wonder, and sometimes I tremble at the thought of being put into solitary confinement. And this was a place where it's only meant for one person to be. But some people call it the hole, some people call it the sweat box, but it's really built for one person. And if you can imagine a long time ago when you had outhouses, it was about that size. But we had 16 of us girls pressed back to back, side to side in one part, And then there were 17 pressed back to back in the other part, and we stayed there all night long. There were no bathroom holes. There was a little hole in the ground where if we had to urinate or defecate or whatever, we were praying that that went into that one little hole. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? My heart still look back and wonder. That was then, and this is now. And if you don't mind, can I please just say something to the audience to just let them know that I pray for everybody. I am a Christian. I'm a woman of God. I'm a member of the Big Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. But the pain that I suffer still hurts. And to express it, to let you know that what we went through is something that we were preparing for you not to go through. But in the generation, we've lost something someplace. We still tell our stories, but there are millions who won't even speak of it because the hurt is still so devastating. My girlfriend, Andrew Brown Kendall from Albany, Georgia, will not even talk about the situation because it hurt that bad. I'm in the company right now of Samuel Mahone and Carolyn Deloach. They're out there who helped organize this program today. And sometimes we go about talking about what happened, and sometimes people listen. But my thing is, to me, as I walked across that bridge, I thought, I went to jail just to try to become a registered voter. Those people were doing the same thing. And today, we have the opportunity to go become registered voters. And some of us do that, but then some of us don't even do that. But then those of us who do, we go to the poll and we somehow seem to vote for the wrong person. Or we are registered voters and don't vote at all. That hurts my heart because I know of the struggle. So I just want to say to all of us, to all the races of this generation, let us stop and look and think what harm we are doing to each other as we journey along this way, because we know that we are God's chosen people and he loves us one and all. But do you realize that it grieves God over and over when he sees us fall? We should feel each other's burden. We should know our sisters and brothers' care. And we should not sit back just seeing people who just don't get anywhere. When we see some young people straying from the teaching that they should know, all of us, you now that you know my story, we ought to just go up to them and talk to them and hold them and embrace them and try to show them the right way to go. But, oh no, some of us are going to leave here today and we're not going to do that. We're going to stand off and look at them and we're going to talk about the things that they say and do. But have y'all ever thought that it could be your child or even you? So from me to you, let us stop finding fault of the other fellow and let's start all over new. And let's love one another and do what God has intended for us to do. I am Laura Virginia Davis Finch, America's Something Kind of Movement, Remember Inc., and I say freedom is still not free. Thank you. Go ahead, Goldie. Stand up.
I have a special treat for you.
Which one you gonna do?
Turn me around.
Okay.
Ain't gonna let nobody
Turn me around, turn me around, turn me around.
Ain't gonna let nobody
turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane.
Ain't gonna let old Satan
Turn me around, turn me around, Lord, turn me around. Ain't gonna let old Satan turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, oh, keep on talking, marching up the freedom lane. That was one song that the kids always liked because it was a little white boy and a little black boy who was very close friends. they played together all the time while they were at school or while they were walking to school because they went to separate school. But then they lived down the road from each other. And you know how some of the country roads were. You got a white farmer here, you got the black sharecropper over here. So the kids had the chance, and if you don't believe me, you can ask Jimmy Carter, our president, and he will tell you the same thing happened to him. But there were this little two boys who were friends, and they were looking at the adults playing one day. And so the little white kids say, well, Dad, why can't we be like our dogs? We go to school, we walk down the road, he go to a separate school, I go to a separate school. When we come home, the only time we can be together is when we're here on the farm. So the dad said, well, I can't explain it to you how you should know. He said, but there's a saying that you just have to stay with your own kind. And so the Freedom Riders have all been and wrote a song. It was called Dogs. And you know how when we were kids, we tell our dogs to sicker, sick you, sicker, 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 sicker. So there's a part in this song that I'm going to do, and I want you to say sicker, sicker. If you can remember, Carol and Sammy, help me out with it. My little doggy was playing one day, dog, 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 down in the middle of a bundle of hay, dog, dog, sicker, sicker, dog, dog. Another little doggy came along, dog, dog, sicker, sicker, dog, dog. Let's get together and eat this bone. Dog, dog, sicker, sicker, dog. Say, why can't we talk about you and me? Sit under the apple tree and be free. Listen. My dog, a love of your dog, and your dog, a love of my dog, and my dog, a love of your dog, and your dog, a love of my dog. And said, why can't we talk about you and me? Sit on the apple tree and be free.
Well, our next guest is going to tell you something about her story, which is a unique story.
My name is Emma Kate Lowe, and I came along during the marchment, and I was 16 and 17 years old. I went from all four of the schools from Ashman Street to Sumter High, starting at McKay Hill School. We didn't ever have any blacks or whites in our school. We had to go to school, we had to tote the wood in there, we had to make sure everybody was warm, and then we studied. But when I came out of school in '63, I went to work. When I went to work, I had to work as a maid for $10 a week. During that time I was working as a maid, I developed some things. I had to say yes, sir, and no, ma'am to young children. And I cleaning the house, I run up on something. A KKK suit. And I'm working for these people. I worked on that day and worked the next day morning. I got my $10 and I walked out. I'm working for somebody that burning crosses in the black people's neighborhood. That's what I grew up in, and had to say good morning to young people. I left that house and I went to another house, and the same thing happened. Working for a KKK, cooking their breakfast, washing their clothes, doing everything for their family, and they burning crosses in the black people's neighborhood and setting fire to the civil rights movement. I remember when Annie got killed on Church Street. The American Civil Rights Movement was there. We didn't have a gun. We were nonviolent, but who got locked up? the white boy got shot and the black people got locked up. I didn't have any license, so I had to, one of the Morans come to me and said, get my key and drive my car. Nobody knows where Tin Pan Alley is. There very few black people know. But I had to go to Tin Pan Alley, get his car, drive it home, so the police wouldn't tow it. The city wouldn't tow it. So I say to you young people, when you see an old person going in a door, don't knock them down. Open the door for them. When you see somebody struggling, smile at them. Say something nice to them. You don't get nothing free. What goes around comes around. There's nothing under this earth is new. You may be next. You got to stop hurting one another. You got to stop shooting one another. Violent. Do it non-violent. Genesis 6 said, he made all races, and he looked and said it was good. That means nobody should be left out. I'm a Christian. I go to church. I try to do things for people that to help them. But to work for somebody and find the soup in their house, I would not call their name, but I did it on Wheatley Street, and I did it right down the street from here, not too far from here. And I looked at these people. How can they look in my face, pay me $10 a week, and treat me like this, and then at night? It didn't only go on them. I found more soups in people's houses that I worked for as a maid. Some of them was doctors. Some of them worked in the store. I had to go to McCress's. It was right down there on Jackson Street. And I had got some items, and this white woman walked up and got in front of me, and I touched this woman like this and said, I was ahead of you. She hit me and pushed me back and told me, don't no black person touch me. And I scattered this stuff on the table and walked down to McLenna's. There's a black and white fountain. Black people had to drink water out of this fountain. White people had to drink water out of another fountain. I drank me some water and I went out the back door. By the time I got to Cotton Avenue, you know who was there to pick me up? The police. But not taking a good look at a black person and recognizing, I went in and I sat down at the table where the people were drinking, and they could not find me. They couldn't find me because they were looking at black. And then the police told me, blacks get back and white come on. And I said, well, all of us are equally right. So why blacks got to get back and white come on? God made all of us. He loved all of his children. And y'all need to take a stand and do the right thing. Pray for these people. Do something to help somebody. Put a smile on your face. If you have to open a door for somebody, go visit the sick. Stop playing with your life, because y'all are the younger generation. Ain't nothing under the sun and new. What goes around comes around. Every 15 years, some our clothes is coming right back in style. Take a look. You may wear something today, you save it 15 years and go back to the store, you can find it. Might be made different, but it's the same old thing. So God wants us to love one another. Be faithful with one another. We got to do that. Because I just want to tell y'all, it wasn't easy to work for someone and knowing they're KKK.
Thank you. Thank you. And our last, but certainly not least.
My name is Donnie Earl McDonald, and you wonder how a lady's sitting up here with a man's name, with a male's name, maybe I should say. Because I guess I weighed 13 pounds and 8 ounces at birth. My mama didn't care who named me. I'm going to give you this, Sammy. This is a picture of Lena Baker, the only black lady that was has been executed in the state of Georgia, and that was in Cuthbert, Georgia. So I'm giving this for them to put in their museum.
Thank you.
Now I did not march because I knew I had a temper and I knew where I would be. So when Manhattan came into operation, I mean, they were already in operation. Mary Kate Fish, Tyner, Bell Tyner, and Johnny Mae Ingram Black and myself, we integrated Manhattan Shirt Factory. James Miles Sr. had a brand new red 2+2. I got licensed when I was 14 years old. My stepfather had to be responsible for me until I got to be 16. You could get licensed for kids then at that time, but see, I was hauling sugar out there in the country because they had a moonshine still. I didn't know why I got my license that fast, and then I found out why, you know. Yeah, but anyway, I did not march, like I said. Reverend Campbell, he's gone now. He told us to be where, to talk where people could understand your language. He said, you need a little money in your pocket, and you got a brand new car here. I think I had $3 in my pocket, and I was way, you know, I was almost rich, you know, with those $3 in there, because I could buy a lot of stuff. Well, that day we had Mr. Marcel. He was a Northerner, and he was at Manhattan Shirt Factory. So when we walked in, he called 3 trainers to come to his office. He had given us a speech. He said, now you are not out here to make friends, you are out here to make money. That suited me. So when they had music that was taped in the top of the building, when we walked in with our trainers, they cut that music off and put on Hit the Road Jack. That's a song. But Mary Kate Fish, they tied her into, they took scraps and tied her into her sewing machine. You had to bring your own hanger to hang your clothes up. And when she came back, her clothes were on the floor and everything. But now I weigh 160 pounds now. Back in the day, I weighed 316, so I didn't have any problem with them. They did not throw anything back that I had. But we were not used to the sewing machines. We were used to putting your foot on the pedal and sewing, but you put your knee on these. And I said, I never want to see another man with a 17.5-inch neck. That's what I had to put the collars on, you know. And when I got back every day from lunch, I had a big pile that I had to redo. But Johnny Mae, her machine started running and it didn't stop. So they told her she had flunked that test, but she didn't work a month out there. She said, I cannot take it. But Mary Kate and I, we worked a while. But when I saw that maybe I was going to get locked up by the police, I left, you know, because you were not going to spit on me and I wouldn't retaliate. And I'm sorry, but this is just the truth, you know. So what I did, to make a long story short, I retired from Robins Air Force Base. I did 32 years in electronics that I worked on that F-15 and that F-13 plane, the one that spanked Gaddafi. Next month, I will have been with the police department in the, I'm a bailiff in the courtroom for 15 years. So you see what kind of work that I like to do, you know. So I didn't have, you know, I went in, now I had some slurs, you know, because one lady told me, she said that when I was out to Manhattan, she didn't tell me, but I heard her saying it as she passed by. She said, and I'm going to use the N-word. She said, I have worked so long by a nigga, I smell like one. So I had to get her for that. I said, no, I said, Avon was out. And to a wild rose, we were getting it. I said, if you smell like me, the bitch, uh-oh. I meant to say the B word, y'all. I didn't mean that. You know, I didn't mean
just tell it.
Oh, God.
It's all right. It comes out.
I told her, I said, you smell like Avon, and I'm stopping right there.
In conclusion, so young people, you understand that we may be aging, but we still got a whole lot of spirit in us, okay? All of us, and my class knows that for sure. No stories, keep my secrets. I have some actual questions, so I want to ask some of them, but your stories have been so fascinating that I'm like cooking the paper going, what do I ask now? Did you, well, let's talk about allies, because I know from watching the knowing history and watching the coverage in Selma, that there were a lot of white people who came from all over the country. So did we see allies, white allies here in Americus also? Or any local people, or were allies always from the outside?
I remember, excuse me. I remember this white man used to come guard. He was an older man. He never was with that hatred look in his eye. You know, you ever seen that hate look? It's a look you get with your nose turned up and all that. That man never did have that look. He would bring us something from his house to eat down there in Dawson, Georgia. Just bring us a little piece. He didn't have much himself, but he used to slip us food in the jail. I just want to tell y'all about these things we used to sleep on. These bunk beds. Y'all don't ever say anything about the things y'all sleep on. Because these things were iron, and they had holes in them about that little. And when you go to sleep at night, when you wake up in the morning, there was holes all over your body, just like that. We didn't have no mattress. I just wanted to put that in.
Linda?
Yes.
I don't know if you remember, there were two people in particular. One was Warren Forson, a white attorney, who was the brother of Secretary of State Ben Forson at that time.
That's right.
Warren Forson was very similar to the American movement in that he defended black students who were falsely arrested and convicted, well, not convicted, but arrested, who had been in the movement and had been to jail and they had been arrested as a reprisal against them. Another one was past president of Georgia Southwestern, Dr. Lowe. Both of these men took it upon themselves to befriend the movement and to take some very progressive stands against segregation at that time. And Dr. Lowe they were both forced to leave Americus. Dr. Lowe, I've seen a picture of him over the administration building over the years.
Yeah.
But look up his history. He was very instrumental in the movement here, as well as Warren Forson. Those are two that I remember.
Now, as a matter of fact, Attorney Forson is still active with civil and social movement. He and his wife at different events we attend, or when we are, in a panel like this, sometime he'll show up. But he and his family actually ran away from Americans. And so I'm not sure, but I think he's now in the Athens, Winder area.
Yeah.
And he's still practicing, and he supports all things that he can that refers to any human rights.
Yeah, he's
very
having a
smart.
very important civil rights case now in the northern part of Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
Earlier, when you arrived, hopefully, you were given an index card, and some of you may have some questions beyond what the women have shared with you. So if anyone has a question, if you would pass a card up. Does anyone have a question at all? Did anybody write down anything? You didn't have a pencil or pen? They even had it in lockup. What happened? What? Nobody? All right. Do you want?
Can I just ask?
Surely, that would make life easy.
You mentioned that the pain is still real, and I'm interested to know personally how you have moved through the pain and used it to, in your own personal lives, push others forward, push yourself forward. Surely there are people in this room who have been discriminated against for race, social, economic class, all kinds of things. And I think it'd be great for us to hear what you did with that. Things are different than they were in 1963. We still got a ways to go.
Right.
But in your own journey, since that time, how have you used that pain and pushed yourself forward in life, especially to become peacemakers and educators and whatnot?
I still try to associate myself with whatever's is being approached through the community. Now, like I said before, I'm a Christian and I'm a member of the Big Bethel Missionary Baptist Church in the Americas. I hold several leadership positions in that ministry. But I was just out here to Georgia Southwestern last month, I think it was, when the AKAs had the Ascend program, and that event was geared toward high school seniors and juniors who were about to be going into the college preparatory. And what happened was the organizers wanted someone to speak about their experience, which I did, like I did today, or something similar to it, and try to entice the young ladies, because they are AKAs, to know who you are first, but then also know God first, then know who you are, and then you'll realize what your purpose-driven life is, so that you can tell somebody. And whether I'm in a panel like this, or I'm in the street, or in my church, or a different organization, I try to always tell people, put God first and let him know what your plans are and what you want to be. And then he will direct you as to who he wants you to be and what your purpose-driven life is. But until we realize that young people are beginning to realize what we did was a foundation for them, and until those of us who are still in the war and still struggling, let everybody know that there is something for them to do. First of all, identify who they are, because you can lose your identity so quick, and I'm not talking about a credit card. I'm just talking about you getting lost in the shuffle, trying to help, trying to do things for everybody, and trying to be yourself, trying to maintain. I raised 4 children by myself. And I'm proud to say that all 4 of them are doing well. Now, I had 2 to fall through the crack. But as of yesterday, thank you, God, March 10th, my baby who I prayed for, I prayed to God for everything, who I prayed for to become the man that I tried to train him to be, to respect others and give respect, came off of probation from being incarcerated for picking up something that didn't belong to him. And it wasn't from a jail, but it was from a prison. So when I say I'm still suffering, the things that I had to do for a sacrifice, I couldn't get welfare because I worked for AT&T Communications after the struggle. I worked for Airtran Airline after the struggle. And even when I moved back here to Americus, Georgia, I worked for the Georgia State Department of Labor. I still had to maintain under the umbrella of what God had put in my life to do, and that was to train my children to respect themselves so that somebody else can respect them. Everywhere I go, I try to greet you with a smile. I try to tell young people, I've met about 4 young people on this campus today, and each one of them was so pleasant because I had forgotten where Jackson Hall was. I knew it had expanded since we had the, we had got so many new buildings. I knew where it was, but I couldn't focus in my mind. And those people were so sweet because I approached them in a sweet manner. So we have to do, as I say in the little speech that I gave, do unto others as we have them to do unto you. But don't do unto them and then split, because there's nothing that can happen if there is a split in communication and unity.
Okay.
Ladies, I have a question for you. Seeing as you worked so hard for all of these years ago and have continued this journey and the struggle, is when you see folks nowadays concerted effort to roll back voting rights and for states to make it harder. Young people, if you don't know this, back in the day, people used to have, black folks would go to vote and they would ask them to identify how many jelly beans were in a jar,
right,
before they could vote, or how many bubbles were on a bar of soap before they could vote, or name all the judges or the commissioners or all these people. And every time you get it, if you've seen the movie Selma, they'd come up with a new test.
That's right.
And so that was a part of the game. So now we have a concerted effort to roll back voting rights 50 years later.
Right.
So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I work the election also, so I'll be working next
17th.
next Tuesday. It's pretty. It's much better. It's much better because you can assist the elder people, but you just sign your name. You know, where you assisted them in voting, because they just come up to vote, but they don't really know what they are voting for. Because when I did early voting myself, and then it wasn't one thing, you know, this all, you know. So, you know, you have to go and help them. So it has changed a lot.
I want to say, just do not let that happen. We cannot have anything reversed that has already been sent forward, because and I guess you guys probably wonder why I always refer to my Christianity, but when God prepared us and He told us to put on the whole armor, I want us to realize that everything that He gave us was covered except for our back. So we don't look back on things that have happened in a negative way, because God still got our back. See, when He created us, He created man in His own image, the own image of God Almighty. He did not have any color. I read the Bible over and over, but I cannot see where He said anything about I'm making man in red, white, green, brown, or black. He just said, I am creating man in my own image. So there was no color mentioned. And so when we look at things that are happening today, especially with them trying to reverse the right to vote, we have to look at what we have come through and where we are now, and what is the possibility for us to make a stable and firm foundation for our young generation to walk through. Because if we start looking back, then we consider ourselves as a failure. And I'm not a failure. I've been there, I've done it, got the t-shirt to show for it, and I'm ready to go forward. So my thing is, when you got a child, or if you have not done it today, if you have a child or someone in your family, or even you, if you're 16 and a half, the first thing you should do, and I hope and pray that with the new school that I hear we're about to get, that there will be a department in that school that when those kids walk across to get that diploma, they also will have that certificate saying that I am a registered voter. It should be somebody stationary at the school to take care of doing that. Because it doesn't matter who you vote for, it doesn't matter when you vote, but me, I vote for everything because I certainly will be voting on the 17th. It doesn't matter when you vote or what the issue is, but my thing is to become a registered voter and to vote and vote for the right choice. And that's the only way we're going to be able to move forward.
She got a
All right,
question.
a question from the audience.
I just want y'all to hear this too. You talked about your efforts at the Manhattan Shirtwaist Factory,
Yes, ma'am.
and that there were 3 of you that integrated the production lines there.
Yes, ma'am.
And my question is, because you sort of threw us right into the middle of it, you were already there.
Uh-huh.
I thought I was using my teacher voice. You talked about that, integrating the work at the Manhattan Shirtwaist Factory. I'm interested in the work that happened before you applied for a job and all the preparations involved. Was it just one day you and a couple friends said, oh, let's go do this? Or was there a concerted effort? Had the company said, all of a sudden, we will hire people we never hired before? I'm kind of interested in the context of your experience.
Well, we just learned that there was this white guy, Mr. Marcel, and we knew then that if there was a white boss man, we probably had a better chance of getting out there. You know, I don't know who was the boss before he came.
He was a northerner?
He was a northerner, So that's how, when we went and took the little test, there was somebody that came by the, what you used to call it when you go to try to get a job, and yeah, that unemployment place. A guy came by and gave the test, and we passed it, so to speak. Because I was in the hospital.
At the time, Manhattan Factory was employed about 800 people, all white women, no blacks. The only black person there was a janitor. And so there were at least 3 negotiators who were trying to integrate places of employment around the state of America. That was Mabel Barnum of Barnum Funeral Homes, Campbell, who was president of the Americans Movement, and also Reverend Freeman, who had a church of Big Bethel,
Bethesda.
And they actually negotiated. They were the ones who prepared people to go in and apply for jobs and what have you. So they were those people who were very instrumental in trying to tear down the wall of civilization. It was a bit of a struggle because they were determined not to hire.
And let me say, after Manhattan, there were several other places. Now, I happen to have been visiting from Detroit and Southern Bell, right on Forest Street. They had an opening, but because I was connected with Michigan Bell in Detroit, I was on a medical leave. So I said, well, my mother's ill, and I said, I might go up here and put in the application. But I heard it through a young lady who worked at the cleaners, a white female who worked at the cleaners. And I'll never forget, I always remember her name is Irene. I'll just go ahead and throw that out. But anyway, they were talking about hiring black people because of the employment ratio. You have to have so many blacks for so many whites. So this was the time that Bell South was looking for black employees. But before we went to apply, I am told that the management at Bell South got together in a meeting one morning and questioned each employee as to how they would feel about a black person coming to work with them. Several people said that, well, we have to be sitting beside them, sitting behind them, and eating with them, and they're gonna be in our break room and all of that. But they, and I know her name, but I refuse to call her name because she was such a sweet lady. But she said, well, at least they need a job. And so all I want to know is how many of y'all are willing to vote that we hire at least 3 or 4 black people. And they said that the majority raised their hand, and that's how we got hired at the telephone company. There was only 6 of us here. And when we had diversity, most of us branched out and went to Columbus, Georgia, Atlanta, Macon, and Albany. But that was my start again with the Bell system in AT&T. But it was hard to get a job any place if you were not a maid, it was hard to get a job any place. What level of education you had? You had to be a teacher, a preacher, or garbage collector. Or you had to have your own business, funeral home. There were one person, 2 or 3 black families had stores, you know, the corner stores. But it was really hard to try to get employed and try to work besides any white person. And I just wanted to share that with you because of the advancement that we have in technology with the Bell system now. It is really wonderful. There's still some things that need to be straightened out and ironed out, but it's a struggle.
And we still had the basket factory too now.
Yeah.
The basket factory.
Well, unfortunately for many of us in the house, our time is drawing near. I hope that the time that you've spent today was time well spent. I hope that you have thought about your place in society and where you'll carry this nation going forth. If you'd like to stay back and talk to any of our guests, I know they would love to talk to you, young people. And so we thank you for your time. And so could we please acknowledge us. Is Sam Mahone, and Sam is the leader of the American Southern Movement Remember Committee, Inc. And I also want to acknowledge Ms. Carolyn Lowe here. She was also one of the young girls at the Leesburg Stockade, and she also was instrumental in pulling this together. So again, history is among us. You are history. History is living. So go and live so.